Welcome back to the channel everyone, and a huge warm welcome to all the new viewers who love discovering hidden treasures hiding in plain sight, because today we are diving deep into one of the most unbelievable coin stories ever told, a story that sounds impossible at first but becomes more fascinating the more you understand it. The incredible legend of the 2014 1-cent coin that is rumored to be worth up to $15 million due to rare errors, unexpected minting mistakes, and once-in a lifetime possibilities that turned an ordinary modern penny into a dream find for collectors around the world. And as we begin this journey, imagine for a moment the millions of pennies that pass through hands every single day, dropped into jars, forgotten in drawers, tossed into pockets without a second thought, yet among them could be a single coin that changes a life forever. And that is exactly why this story captures the imagination of treasure hunters, collectors, and everyday people alike, because the idea that something so small and common could secretly be worth more than luxury cars, mansions, or even private islands feels like pure magic. But when you look closer at how coins are made, how errors happen, and how rarity is created, the story becomes not only believable but thrillingly possible. So let's slowly unfold how a 2014 1-cent could reach such an astronomical value. Starting with the reality that modern coins are produced in massive quantities using high-speed machinery that operates at incredible pressure and speed, and while these machines are designed for perfection, no industrial process is truly flawless, especially when millions upon millions of coins are being struck, which opens the door to mistakes that can slip through unnoticed. And when those mistakes align in just the right way, they can create a coin so rare that collectors would compete fiercely to own it, driving prices into unbelievable territory. And the year 2014 is particularly interesting because it falls within a period where the United States Mint was pushing production efficiency while also dealing with aging equipment, metal composition challenges, and high demand for circulating coinage, which created the perfect environment for rare anomalies to occur. One of the most talked about possibilities with a 2014 1-cent involves the concept of a wrong planchet error, where a coin is struck on a blank intended for a completely different denomination or even a foreign coin. And if a 2014 Lincoln cent were accidentally struck on a planchet meant for a higher value coin or an experimental metal composition, its weight, thickness, and appearance would immediately stand out to experts, and if authenticated, such a coin could instantly become a legendary rarity, especially if only one or two examples were ever discovered. And the value of $15 million becomes imaginable when you consider how collectors value uniqueness above almost everything else. Another powerful factor is the possibility of a transitional metal error, because the composition of pennies has changed over the years, moving from copper to zinc-based cores with copper plating, and during times when metal supplies are adjusted or experimental batches are tested, the risk of an incorrect metal being used increases. And if a 2014 1-cent were somehow struck on a solid copper planchet, or an experimental alloy never intended for circulation, the intrinsic value combined with the historical significance could push its worth into record-breaking territory, especially if laboratory testing confirmed it as a genuine mint error rather than an alteration. And then there is the world of dramatic strike errors, where coins are struck multiple times, struck off-center, or struck with misaligned dies. And while minor off-center strikes are relatively common and worth modest premiums, an extreme off-center strike combined with other errors like a broad strike or missing design elements could produce a visually stunning coin that collectors would describe as a masterpiece of chaos. And if such a coin also had full documentation linking it directly to the minting process of 2014, its desirability would skyrocket. Another mind-blowing scenario involves a mule error, which occurs when two dies from different coins are mistakenly paired together, resulting in a coin with mismatched designs on the front and back. And mule errors are among the rarest and most sought after mistakes in modern coinage because they reveal a breakdown in quality control at the highest level. And if a 2014 1-cent were discovered with a reverse design never intended for a penny, the numismatic world would erupt with excitement, because such an error would challenge everything we know about modern minting safeguards, and the rarity alone could justify an 8-figure valuation. Then there is the possibility of a double die error, where the design is accidentally duplicated due to misalignment during the die creation process. And while some double dies are well known and widely collected, a dramatic double die from 2014 that went unnoticed for years could become a sleeper rarity, especially if the doubling affected major design elements like Lincoln's portrait or the lettering, creating a bold and unmistakable appearance that could not be dismissed as simple machine doubling. And when collectors realize that only a handful exist, competition drives prices upward at an astonishing pace. Another fascinating angle is the idea of a missing mint mark or an extra mint mark error, which may sound minor but can be incredibly valuable under the right circumstances, especially if the error contradicts official mint records, and a 2014 1 cent with an impossible mint mark configuration could indicate a die anomaly or unauthorized die modification, making it a mystery piece that experts would debate for years, adding to its mystique and value, and beyond physical errors. Provenance plays a huge role in creating a $15 million coin, because if a coin can be traced back to a specific minting event, experimental run, or internal investigation within the mint, its story becomes as valuable as the metal itself. Collectors are not just buying a coin, they are buying history, controversy, and a tangible piece of a mystery that may never be fully explained. And this is where the legend of the 2014 1 cent truly comes alive, because whispers of internal testing, rejected planchets, and experimental strikes fuel the imagination of collectors and keep them searching through rolls of pennies with renewed hope. And let's not forget condition, because even the rarest error can lose value if it is damaged or worn, but a pristine, uncirculated example with sharp details, original luster, and no signs of tampering would sit at the very top of the value scale. And if such a coin were encapsulated and authenticated by multiple respected grading services, its legitimacy would be unquestionable, opening the door to private sales or auction battles where ultra-wealthy collectors compete to own something no one else can, and the price climbs higher and higher as bids escalate. And what truly drives the idea of $15 million is the combination of multiple errors on a single coin, because while one error is exciting, two errors are rare, and three or more errors occurring together is almost unheard of. And if a 2014 1 cent were found with a wrong planchet, a dramatic off-center strike, and a double die all at once, it would be a statistical miracle, the kind of coin that becomes the centerpiece of museums and private collections. And in such cases, value is not determined by price guides or past sales but by what the most passionate buyer is willing to pay to own the impossible. And that is why stories like this persist and inspire people to keep looking, because history has shown time and time again that unbelievable discoveries do happen. Pennies have sold for millions before, and each new generation brings the potential for a new record-breaking find. And as long as coins continue to be minted by humans using machines that are not perfect, there will always be the chance that a tiny copper-colored disc from a year like 2014 could hold a secret worth a fortune. So the next time you see a penny on the ground or hear the clink of change in your pocket, remember that behind every ordinary coin lies the extraordinary possibility of an error, a mistake, a moment in time where perfection failed and rarity was born. And that is what makes the story of the 2014 1 cent worth $15 million not just a rumor or a fantasy but a powerful reminder that treasure hunting is alive and well in the modern world, waiting patiently for the right eyes to notice it. Next, 1999 D 1 cent coin. Today we are diving deep into one of the most fascinating and mysterious stories in modern American coin collecting, the legendary 1999 D 1 cent that has stunned collectors around the world with rumors, discoveries, theories, and documented examples suggesting that certain rare error versions could be worth up to $15 million, yes $15 million, for a single penny that most people would never look at twice. And as we begin this journey together, imagine yourself holding a simple copper-colored coin that looks ordinary at first glance, yet hidden within it are tiny mistakes, rare production anomalies, and extraordinary circumstances that transform it from spare change into a collector's dream. And that is exactly why this story captures the imagination of treasure hunters, coin enthusiasts, and everyday people alike, because it proves that history, rarity, and human error can collide in the most unexpected ways, creating something incredibly valuable from something so small. And the 1999 D Lincoln cent stands as one of the most talked about examples of this phenomenon, especially when we explore the errors and mistakes that could make certain examples so rare and so valuable that auction prices and private sales could reach staggering levels. And to understand how this is even possible, we need to travel back to the late 1990s. A time when the United States Mint was producing billions of pennies every year, with Denver being one of the busiest mints in the country, striking massive quantities of Lincoln cents to meet everyday demand, and when production numbers are that high, the chances of errors increase. But the truly valuable errors are not just common mistakes, they are rare combinations of misalignment, die issues, planchet anomalies, transitional metal problems, doubled elements, and unique circumstances that result in coins that should never have existed in the first place, yet somehow slipped through quality control and entered circulation. And the 1999 D penny is especially intriguing because it exists at a crossroads of technology, design consistency, and material standards, where even a small deviation could create something extraordinary. And as collectors began closely examining these coins, stories started to surface of unusual examples with dramatic errors that set them apart from the billions of normal 1999 D cents, and one of the most important factors that can elevate the value of a coin to such extreme levels is the concept of rarity combined with demand, because even the most spectacular error means little if collectors are not aware of it or if there is no desire to own it. But in the case of the 1999 D penny, the Lincoln Cent series is one of the most widely collected coin series in the world, meaning that even a single known example of an extreme error can ignite intense competition among collectors, museums, and investors, driving prices into the millions. Especially when the error represents something historically significant or unique, and one of the most talked about possibilities with the 1999 D penny involves major double die errors, where parts of the design such as the date, lettering, or Lincoln's profile appear clearly doubled due to a misalignment during the die creation process. And unlike minor machine doubling, true double dies are created when the die itself receives multiple impressions that are not perfectly aligned, resulting in bold, raised doubling that is part of the coin's design. And if a dramatic double die obverse or reverse were discovered on a 1999 D penny, especially one that shows strong separation and clarity, it would immediately become one of the key varieties in the Lincoln Cent series. And if such a double die were extremely rare or even unique, the value could skyrocket into the millions, particularly if it were authenticated, graded in high condition, and supported by solid provenance. But double dies are only one piece of the puzzle, because another major category of errors that could push a 1999 D penny into the $15 million range involves wrong planchet errors, where a coin is struck on a metal blank intended for a different denomination or even a different country. And while this might sound unbelievable, it has happened before, and when it does, the results are astonishing, such as pennies struck on dime planchets, foreign planchets, or experimental metal blanks. And if a 1999 D penny were discovered struck on an incorrect planchet that was never meant for circulation, especially one composed of precious metal or an experimental alloy, it would represent a once-in-a-generation discovery. And such coins often carry enormous value because they reveal hidden aspects of mint operations that were never intended to be seen by the public. And when collectors realize that a coin should not exist according to official mint records, the mystery and allure become irresistible, pushing prices to extraordinary heights. And another powerful factor that can create a multi-million-dollar penny is a major off-metal strike combined with other errors, because error stacking, where multiple mistakes occur on the same coin, is exceptionally rare. And the more dramatic and visually obvious the errors are, the more desirable the coin becomes, especially if the errors can be clearly identified without magnification. And imagine a 1999 D penny that is not only struck on the wrong planchet but also shows a dramatic off-center strike, missing design elements, or partial collar errors, creating a coin that looks almost surreal. And such coins blur the line between currency and art, captivating collectors who are willing to pay immense sums to own something so unique. And die errors also play a critical role in the legend of the 1999 D penny, because dies are the tools used to strike coins. And when they become damaged, cracked, or misaligned, they can create spectacular results, such as large die cracks, cuds, retained cuds, and die breaks that distort the design in dramatic ways. And while minor die cracks are common and usually add little value, massive die failures that dramatically alter Lincoln's portrait or the lettering can be incredibly rare, especially if the mint corrected the problem quickly, resulting in only a handful of coins being struck before the die was removed from service. And if such an error were discovered on a 1999 D penny, In pristine condition, it could become a centerpiece of any collection, commanding prices that reflect its rarity and visual impact. And then there is the fascinating topic of transitional errors, which occur when a mint mistakenly uses the wrong materials or design elements during a transition period. And while 1999 is not typically associated with a major design or metal change for the Lincoln cent, the possibility of experimental planchets or leftover materials from testing phases cannot be completely ruled out. And if a 1999 D penny were discovered with a composition that does not match official specifications, especially if it were documented and verified by experts, it would raise serious questions about mint procedures during that time, and collectors are drawn to such mysteries because they represent gaps in official history, moments where reality does not perfectly align with records. And those moments can be incredibly valuable, especially when they are embodied in a tangible object like a coin. And condition also plays an enormous role in determining value, because even the rarest error can lose significant value if it is heavily worn or damaged, but a 1999 D penny with a major error that has survived in near-perfect or mint-state condition would be exponentially more valuable, especially if it retains its original luster, sharp details, and eye appeal. And when such a coin is professionally graded and encapsulated by a respected grading service, it gains credibility and market confidence, which is essential when values reach into the millions, because buyers need assurance that what they are purchasing is genuine, accurately described, and preserved for the future. And provenance, or the documented history of a coin's ownership, can also add tremendous value, especially if the coin can be traced back to its discovery, early collectors, or notable collections, because a well-documented story adds legitimacy and romance to the piece, transforming it from a simple object into a piece of numismatic history. And this is particularly important for coins with values as high as $15 million, because such prices are driven not only by rarity but by trust, storytelling, and the confidence that the coin represents something truly exceptional. And another angle that fuels the legend of the 1999 D penny is the role of public awareness and media attention, because when a rare coin is discovered and publicized, it can spark widespread interest and renewed searching, leading to additional discoveries or at least heightened demand. And stories of people finding valuable pennies in pocket change or old jars resonate deeply with audiences, because they suggest that extraordinary wealth might be hiding in plain sight. And this sense of possibility keeps collectors and casual searchers alike engaged, constantly checking their coins for overlooked details. And the idea that a 1999 D penny could be worth $15 million amplifies this excitement, encouraging people to learn more about coin errors, minting processes, and the subtle details that differentiate a common coin from a priceless one. Next, 1996 1-cent coin. Today, whether you are a longtime coin collector, a curious treasure hunter, or someone who simply loves stories where ordinary objects turn into extraordinary fortunes, because today we are exploring one of the most fascinating and talked about possibilities in modern numismatics, the incredible idea that a 1996 1-cent coin, a simple Lincoln penny that once passed unnoticed through millions of hands, could be worth as much as $12 million due to rare errors, minting mistakes, and extraordinary circumstances that transformed a common coin into a potential masterpiece of rarity and value. And as you settle in for this deep dive, imagine the thrill of discovering that something as small and humble as a penny could hold the power to change a life forever, because that sense of possibility is exactly what keeps collectors searching, learning, and examining every detail with care. And the 1996 Lincoln cent sits at the heart of this excitement because it was produced during a time of massive mint output, evolving technology, and intense demand for circulating coinage, all of which created the perfect environment for rare and dramatic errors to occur. And while billions of pennies were struck that year across multiple mints, only a microscopic fraction could ever qualify for the kind of value that reaches into the multi-million-dollar range. And understanding why requires us to explore the minting process itself, the types of errors that can happen, and the specific combinations of rarity, condition, and historical significance that elevate a coin from pocket change to legend. And in 1996 the United States Mint was producing Lincoln cents primarily composed of zinc with a thin copper plating, a format introduced years earlier to reduce costs. And while this composition was standard, it also introduced new opportunities for mistakes, such as improper plating, exposed zinc cores, bonding failures, and planchet preparation issues, and when such problems occur in extreme or unusual ways, they can result in coins that look dramatically different from normal examples, immediately catching the attention of knowledgeable collectors. And one of the most powerful drivers of value in the 1996 1-cent story is the possibility of major double die errors. Because double dies are among the most famous and desirable mint errors in American coinage, created when the die used to strike coins receives more than one misaligned impression during its creation, resulting in bold, raised doubling that is clearly visible on the finished coin. And if a 1996 penny were discovered with strong, well-defined doubling on the date, the word liberty, the motto "In God We Trust," or even Lincoln's portrait itself, it would instantly become a centerpiece of the Lincoln cent series. And if that double die were extremely rare or unique, especially from a high-output year like 1996, the combination of scarcity and demand could drive its value into astonishing territory, particularly if the coin were preserved in near-perfect condition. And beyond double dies, there is the thrilling possibility of wrong planchet errors, which occur when a coin is struck on a metal blank intended for a different denomination or purpose. And while such errors are rare, they are among the most dramatic and valuable, because they reveal behind-the-scenes mistakes that were never meant to escape the mint. And a 1996 penny struck on a planchet meant for a dime, a foreign coin, or an experimental alloy would immediately raise eyebrows and questions, especially if the composition could be scientifically verified and shown to deviate from official mint specifications. And such a discovery would not only be rare but historically significant, because it would suggest that materials crossed paths in ways that official records do not fully explain. And collectors are deeply drawn to these mysteries, often willing to pay enormous sums to own a tangible piece of hidden history. And another category of errors that can push a penny's value into the millions involves dramatic off-center strikes and misaligned dies, where the design is only partially struck onto the planchet, leaving large blank areas and creating a visually striking appearance. And while minor off-center strikes are relatively common and modestly valuable, extreme examples that still show the full date and mint details are far rarer. And when combined with other errors such as wrong planchets or double dies, they can become almost mythical in status. And the idea of a 1996 penny showing multiple major errors at once is one of the key reasons why such high valuations are even discussed, because error stacking is extraordinarily rare, and when it happens, it creates a coin that stands apart from everything else known in the series. And die errors also play a crucial role in this story, because the dies used to strike coins are subject to immense pressure and wear, and when they crack, chip, or break, they can produce coins with dramatic raised areas known as cuds, retained cuds, or large die breaks that distort the design in unforgettable ways. And while small die cracks are common and often overlooked, massive die failures that dramatically alter Lincoln's portrait or obscure large portions of the lettering are far less common, especially if the mint identified and corrected the issue quickly, limiting the number of coins struck with that damaged die. And a 1996 penny bearing such a spectacular die error, particularly in mint state condition, would be highly sought after, because it captures a moment when the minting process literally broke down under pressure, freezing that moment in metal for future generations to study and admire. And then there is the fascinating concept of transitional and experimental errors, which occur when coins are struck using materials, dies, or processes that were being tested or phased out. And while 1996 is not officially recognized as a major transition year for the Lincoln cent, the possibility of experimental planchets, test strikes, or leftover materials entering production cannot be entirely dismissed, especially given the complexity and scale of mint operations. And if a 1996 penny were discovered with a composition that does not match any known standard, and if that composition were verified through advanced testing, it would instantly become one of the most intriguing numismatic discoveries of its era, because it would challenge established assumptions and open new questions about mint practices during the mid-1990s. And collectors are often willing to pay extraordinary prices for such coins, not only because of their rarity but because they expand the known boundaries of numismatic knowledge. And condition is another absolutely critical factor in reaching values as high as $12 million, because even the rarest error can lose much of its appeal if it is heavily worn, damaged, or altered. but a coin that has survived in pristine or near pristine condition, retaining sharp details, original luster, and strong eye appeal, becomes exponentially more valuable, especially when authenticated and graded by a respected third-party grading service, and professional grading provides confidence to buyers, which is essential when values climb into the millions. Because no serious collector or investor will commit that level of money without assurance of authenticity. Accuracy, and preservation, and provenance also adds another powerful layer of value, because a well-documented history of discovery and ownership can elevate a coin beyond its physical characteristics, transforming it into a storied artifact with a narrative that resonates deeply within the collecting community, and a 1996 penny with a clear, credible discovery story, supported by expert analysis and historical context, would command far more attention and trust than a similar coin with an unclear or questionable background, and public awareness and media attention further amplify these values, because when a rare coin is publicized, it can spark widespread interest, renewed searching, and intense competition among collectors, museums, and investors, all of which drive prices higher, and stories of valuable pennies discovered in everyday places resonate strongly with audiences, because they suggest that hidden wealth might still be out there, waiting to be found by someone with curiosity and patience, and this sense of possibility keeps the legend of the 1996 penny alive, encouraging people to examine their change, learn about errors, and engage more deeply with the history of American coinage. And while it is important to remember that the vast majority of 1996 pennies are worth only face value, the existence of even one confirmed example with the right combination of errors, rarity, condition, and historical significance is enough to justify extraordinary valuations. Because the numismatic market is driven by uniqueness and demand, not averages, and a single coin that stands alone in its category can redefine expectations and set new benchmarks for value, and this is why collectors emphasize education and careful examination, because the difference between a common coin and a priceless one often lies in subtle details that are easy to overlook, such as weight differences, metal composition, alignment, and the shape of letters and numbers, and those who take the time to learn these details increase their chances of recognizing something extraordinary when they see it, and the 1996 1 cent serves as a powerful reminder that the minting process, while highly controlled, lasts. 2001 1 cent coin. Today, especially those who love unbelievable stories where everyday objects turn into life-changing treasures, because today we are diving deep into one of the most fascinating and mind-blowing topics in modern coin collecting, the incredible possibility that a 2001 1 cent coin, a simple Lincoln penny that once passed unnoticed through countless hands, could be worth an astonishing $11 million due to rare minting errors, production mistakes, and extraordinary circumstances that transformed an ordinary piece of pocket change into a potential numismatic legend. And as we begin this long and detailed journey together, imagine the excitement of realizing that something as small and common as a penny could hold immense hidden value, because that sense of wonder is exactly what fuels collectors, treasure hunters, and curious minds around the world. And the 2001 Lincoln cent is especially intriguing because it was produced during a period of massive output by the United States Mint, when billions of pennies were struck to meet everyday demand, and whenever production reaches such enormous levels, the likelihood of mistakes increases. But the coins that truly matter are not the common errors, they are the rare, dramatic, and sometimes mysterious mistakes that slip through quality control and survive long enough to be discovered, authenticated, and appreciated. And the idea that a 2001 penny could be worth $11 million is not about every coin from that year, because the vast majority are worth only face value, but about the existence or possibility of one or a few extraordinary examples that combine extreme rarity, powerful visual impact, historical significance, and intense collector demand. And to understand how such a valuation is even possible, we need to explore the minting environment of 2001, the materials used, the technology involved, and the wide range of errors that can occur when metal, machinery, and human oversight intersect. And in 2001 the Lincoln cent was composed primarily of zinc with a thin copper plating, a cost-saving composition that had been in use for years, and while this format was efficient, it also introduced vulnerabilities, such as plating blisters, incomplete bonding, exposed zinc cores, and improper preparation of planchets. And while many of these issues result in minor imperfections, extreme or unusual examples can produce coins that look dramatically different from normal pennies, instantly drawing the attention of knowledgeable collectors, and one of the most important categories of errors that can elevate a 2001 penny into the multi-million-dollar realm is the double die error, because double dies are created during the die-making process when the die receives more than one misaligned impression, resulting in bold, raised doubling that becomes a permanent part of the coin's design. And unlike machine doubling, which is flat and common, true double dies show strong separation and depth, often visible to the naked eye, and if a 2001 penny were discovered with a dramatic double die obverse showing clear doubling on the date, the word liberty, the motto "In God We Trust," or Lincoln's profile, it would immediately become one of the most important varieties of the modern Lincoln cent series, and the value would increase exponentially if that double die were extremely rare, perhaps limited to a very small number of coins before the error was detected and corrected. And rarity alone is not enough, because demand plays an equally critical role, and the Lincoln cent is one of the most widely collected coin series in the world, meaning that even a single spectacular error can attract global attention, fierce competition, and astonishing prices, especially when collectors realize that such an error represents a once-in-a-generation discovery. And beyond double dies, wrong planchet errors represent another powerful pathway to extraordinary value. Because these errors occur when a coin is struck on a metal blank intended for a different denomination or purpose, and while this may sound unbelievable, it has happened multiple times throughout mint history, resulting in some of the most valuable coins ever sold, and a 2001 penny struck on a planchet intended for a dime, a foreign coin, or an experimental alloy would immediately raise serious questions about mint procedures, especially if the composition could be scientifically verified and shown to differ from official specifications, and collectors are deeply fascinated by coins that should not exist according to official records, because they reveal hidden layers of history and human error, and if such a coin were authenticated and preserved in high condition, it could easily reach multi-million-dollar territory, particularly if it were unique or nearly unique, and error stacking, where multiple major errors occur on the same coin, represents one of the rarest and most valuable scenarios in numismatics, because the odds of two or more significant mistakes happening simultaneously are incredibly low, and when they do occur, they create coins that stand completely apart from everything else known. And imagine a 2001 penny struck on the wrong planchet, showing a dramatic off-center strike, combined with double die features or missing design elements. And such a coin would not only be rare but visually stunning, capturing the imagination of collectors who are willing to pay extraordinary sums to own something so unique. And off-center strikes themselves are another important category of error, because they occur when the planchet is not properly seated during striking, resulting in a coin where part of the design is missing and part of the blank remains visible. And while minor off-center strikes are relatively common and modestly valuable, extreme off-center examples that still show the full date and mint details are far rarer, and when combined with other errors, their value can skyrocket, especially if the coin is well preserved and visually dramatic. And die errors also play a crucial role in the legend of the 2001 penny, because dies are subjected to enormous pressure during production, and over time they can crack, chip, or break, resulting in raised areas known as cuds, retained cuds, or large die breaks that distort the design in dramatic ways. And while small die cracks are common and often overlooked, massive die failures that significantly alter Lincoln's portrait or obscure large portions of the lettering are far less common, especially if the mint quickly removed the damaged die from service, limiting the number of affected coins. And a 2001 penny featuring a spectacular die break or cut in mint state condition would be highly sought after, because it captures a moment when the minting process itself failed, freezing that moment in metal for collectors and historians to study. And then there is the intriguing possibility of transitional or experimental errors, which occur when coins are struck using materials, dyes, or processes that were being tested or phased out. And while 2001 is not officially recognized as a major transition year for the Lincoln cent, the complexity and scale of mint operations mean that experimental planchets or test materials could theoretically have been present. And if a 2001 penny were discovered with a composition that does not match any known standard, and if that composition were verified through advanced testing, it would become one of the most important modern coin discoveries, because it would challenge established assumptions and open new questions about mint practices during that era, and such a coin would attract intense interest from collectors, researchers, and institutions, driving its value to extraordinary heights. And condition is another absolutely critical factor when discussing valuations as high as $11 million, because even the rarest error loses much of its appeal if it is heavily worn, damaged, or altered, but a coin that has survived in pristine or near-pristine condition, retaining sharp details, original luster, and strong eye appeal, becomes exponentially more valuable, especially when authenticated and graded by a respected third-party grading service, and professional grading provides confidence and credibility, which are essential when values reach into the millions, because buyers need assurance that the coin is genuine, accurately described, and preserved for the future, and provenance, or the documented history of a coin's discovery and ownership, can add another powerful layer of value, because a well-documented story transforms a coin from a mere object into a piece of living history, and a 2001 penny with a clear, credible discovery story, supported by expert analysis and historical context, would command far more trust and interest than a similar coin with an unclear background, and media attention and public awareness also play a significant role in driving values, because when a rare coin is discovered and publicized, it can spark widespread interest, renewed searching, and intense competition among collectors, museums, and investors, all of which drive prices higher, and stories of valuable pennies found in everyday places resonate deeply with audiences, because they suggest that hidden wealth might still be out there, waiting to be found by someone with curiosity and patience, and this sense of possibility keeps the legend of the 2001 penny alive, encouraging people to examine their change, learn about mint errors, and engage more deeply with numismatic history.